Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. There's so much stuff to watch on YouTube, and you chose this one. We appreciate that. That's Matt behind the camera. I'm Ben. That makes this stuff they don't want you to know. Now, this week, Matt and I have been working on something that's a little bit of a dirty word in a lot of American politics, and that is inequality. Inequality is sort of like herpes. Everybody knows it's around. People want to ignore it, but sometimes they can't, right? Can I say that on this video? So if you have read the news recently, and by recently we mean within like the last 10 years, you see that inequality is spiking in the West. There's no two ways about it. It's true in the United States, England, Canada, and more nations across the planet, more developed nations that is, people are finding it tougher and tougher to get by. Prices on everything are rising, wages are stagnating, and a few people at the top of the socio-economic pyramid are making out like bandits. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but it is true. So we've heard a lot about this middle class idea. US politicians often refer to it as middle America. And in, middle America or the middle class, what they're doing when they use that sort of technique is they're trying to appeal to everyone and make everybody feel like they're part of the same thing. Even when that's not the case. Historically, the middle class, this concept is pretty old. It goes back centuries, even to the 1700s, and it began as this idea of a buffer class, someone between the peasants and the royalty, the peasants and the aristocracy or something. And then it evolved to something that was more of a business class or a mercantile class. And these would be people who through their enterprises or through capitalism had acquired enough money, enough income, and enough wealth to go toe-to-toe with the nobles. And this was a disruptive force in societies at the time. The French Revolution, for instance, was driven by the middle class, but these are not the people you would recognize as middle class today. These were the equivalent of millionaires, but they were self-made. They didn't just inherit millions. And nowadays, in the United States, middle class is often used as a synonym for the common man, as we said. But the definition of what middle class is or what the common man is changes depending on so many factors: cost of living, inflation, if your wages are rising or not. Spoiler alert, probably not, honestly. And it can vary not just in the United States, but it can vary within states. It can vary within cities between states. So if we say, for instance, that the average or median income in the United States is a little bit more than $51,000 in 2012, what does that really tell us? And if we're defining this middle class idea by terms of household income, then what we immediately find is that people don't generally agree. You can hear numbers from like $25,000 a year to $100,000 a year, and people will say that's middle class. You'll hear politicians like Mitt Romney and Barack Obama say that anybody making less than $200,000 a year or $250,000 a year is still middle class. And there's a weird thing here. Despite all of the polls, 32,000 to 64,000, that's from the Pew Charitable Trust, 20,000 to 102,000, that's the U.S. Census Bureau, 50,000 to 122,000, that's the Department of Commerce. There's one interesting commonality, and that is the majority of people in the United States think that their income bracket is middle class. Now, we might put this into little subgenres, upper, lower, middle, if that's a thing. But the truth of the matter is that not everybody can be middle class, and we seem to, as a society, believe that we all are middle class, when this is clearly not the case. So those are just a few of the reasons that no one in the United States really has a good definition or universally accepted definition of middle class. And so it can be very easy when we just look at the United States to say, one, a lot of people don't agree on what they think they're talking about, and two, inequality is skyrocketing, and three, it's more and more difficult to be middle class. These are 3 points that people continue to debate today, but it might surprise a lot of viewers in the US to learn that inequality is actually lessening on a global average. The middle class is moving, it seems, to developing countries. That's right, the middle class, while it is increasingly endangered in Western countries, is on the rise like gangbusters in developing places like China, Brazil, India. In the future, these are going to be the nations with the largest share of the global middle class. So the silver lining to this, in the big picture, is that more and more people are being pulled out of abject poverty over the past decade than we have seen in almost any other time in history. And that's exciting, on a global scale. But if we look closer and closer, if we go down to the West and then we go down to the United States specifically, we're finding some increasingly distressing news. I mean, here's something that some of you more cynical viewers may enjoy out there. More and more people have been saying, what if the American middle class was just sort of a myth or even an accident to begin with? This isn't as crazy as it might sound, because if we think about the span of time involved here, the middle class is such a recent phenomenon that it may well be just a blip, just a spark in the pan. There's no reason for us to assume that it will necessarily continue as long as it has, even. Interesting note, an investor named Mark Andreessen, who was responsible for Netscape and several other innovative companies, said that he believes the American middle class happened as an accident, a historical just coincidence. And here's why. We know that the rise of the middle class in the United States starts in post-World War II America, right? We see that the economy just skyrockets, and more people have these jobs. People are able to buy that house with the picket fence, have the 2.5 kids and some cars and stuff. But why? It may be because the United States was the only industrialized nation that really survived and prospered from World War II. I mean, think about it. The other European manufacturing bases were crippled, destroyed, even down to the railways that were used to bring goods to the factories. So the United States was the only game in town. And that is no longer the case. So these are just some of the weird factors that converge in strange contradictory ways when we try to figure out what the middle class is and what the nature and future of inequality might be. But what do you think? Is the middle class a myth? Is the middle class an accident of history? Is it going to continue in the future? Is the middle class in the United States doomed? We're taking a closer look at this. We'd love your help, so leave your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for our upcoming video later this week when we talk about inequality and you. Hey Matt, here's my impression of every politician since the dawn of television. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, now I come from salt of the earth stock, and I'm here for middle America, okay? I'm not like those fat cats in Washington. I'm not like those special interests out there in California. No, I'm from middle America. I'm one of the common, everyday folk just like you. And I'm going to Washington to take this country back.